arouse the careless, and restore the penitent. Grant us all things necessary for our common life, and bring us all to be of one heart and one mind within your holy church, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Next up is Deacon Elaine.
O God of grace and glory, whose mercies can never be numbered, accept our prayers for our brothers and sisters who have died in the Lord this year. Richard Frederick Jensen, Barbara Ruth Saris Bailey, Patty McCarthy, Robert Bob Cross, Mary Whiteside Dewey, Betsy Batten Murphy, Babette Tuchek, we give you heartfelt thanks for the good examples of all your servants who have finished their journey on earth in faith. And now many of us here have lost a loved one. And let us take a moment to pause and offer a silent prayer for those we have loved but see no longer. Almighty God, Father of mercies and giver of comfort, deal graciously with everyone here who mourns, and that casting all their cares on you, they may know the consolation of your love. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. You got it. I want to be sure that the folks at home are hearing us. So, everybody's muted. Thank you. Oh, Holly says yes. Yes. Oh, yes. Okay, good. Thank you. So, Holly, now we see you, Holly. We're all looking at you, Polly. So let's continue with a couple of appointments. I'd like to appoint Linda Farrell to be the clerk for this annual meeting. Linda's been the clerk for Vestry for the last couple of years. So Linda, are you prepared to be clerk for this meeting?
I am prepared.
She's got her note paper and everything's all set. And also, it's not in the agenda, but also I would ask Libby Beck if you'd be willing to be parish treasurer again for another year.
I will, with God's help.
That's the right response. Thank you. So let's thank Libby and Linda for their service. And speaking of thanks, now Senior Warden Kathleen Henry gets a word of thanks. I'll stand right here.
Okay, cool beans. All right, I wanted to thank all of our vestry members that have been putting up with our interesting sort of vestry meetings over the last 2 years, here, there, and hybrid. Oh, sorry. Okay, hello, better. All right, so thank you to everybody who put up with our vestry meetings over the last 2 years, some in person, some on Zoom, some hybrid. It's been a little bit up and down and crazy and spur of the moment, so thanks for sticking with us. But my other purpose is to thank those who are going to be discontinuing their service with the vestry this year. You've served us well, and thank you so much for all your efforts. So to that, Bill Etter, John Louis, Nancy Clay, Philip Johnston, thank you very much for your service.
So we'll move right into nominations for Vestry coming up, and I'll ask Kathleen to place in nomination those who have already agreed to nomination to be serving on Vestry.
All right, so if these do not sound correct to you, you may say so. However, the nominations thus far, Kathy Lacey, Retta Hill, Bill Fitzner, and Susie Jeffers. So we have 4 positions open, and those are the nominations that are already in existence. Are there any other nominations?
Seeing no remarks, I would like to ask for a motion that nominations be closed. Tom Pitzer moves the motion to be closed. Is there a second? Second. Libby, second. Other seconds as well. Okay, I didn't explain voting. So the voting we'll do by hand here, and we'll go back to gallery view up there. Oh, I'll control that. Right. Okay. So we'll also vote by hand at home. So the motion that to close nominations, all those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Very well. So no more nominations for Vestry. Then I will entertain a motion to elect those Vestry members by acclamation. Who moved that? Dan Bernardo moved. Is there a second? And Jeannie Haskell seconded. And that, so then again, raise your hand. All those in favor to elect those 4 by acclamation? Bunch of hands and an audible aye. Any opposed? Put your hands down. Any opposed? Same sign. Okay, I see no hands opposed, so very well, you are elected. Thank you. Another election, same procedure. We need to elect someone to be our one of our 3 rotating delegates to convention. And Suzanne Capstick is offered to be our delegate this year. Are there any other nominations to fill that rotating delegate position for diocesan convention? Not seeing any intention to speak, so is there a motion to close the nomination for convention delegate? So moved. Yes. Retta moved. Is there a second? Libby seconded. Then all those in favor to close the nominations for diocesan convention delegate, raise your hand. And any, okay, put your hands down. Any opposed? All right, we'll go continue the same way. Then we'll elect, well, you know, it's kind of pointless, is it? We just did that. So we'll just let it stand. Suzanne, you're the delegate for a convention. I do not have an alternate nomination. So we have 3 delegates, and the senior warden also serves as delegate for convention every year. But we do rotate on, have an alternate in case one of those cannot attend convention. Is there anyone here or on screen who wants to serve as alternate? No? Who? Margaret wants to be an alternate. Oh, and Russell did. Oh, we have competition for the alternate. Someone also just texted me. We can have 2 alternates, you're right. So we will accept 2 alternates in case we have 2 spots available. So we'll go ahead and just do the election for that. So is there a motion to approve Margaret Drum and Russell Hill as alternates for convention this year? Moved and seconded by Retta and Robin Hill. All those in favor, raise your hand. I see hands there, hands here. Put your hands down. Anyone opposed? So moved. Thank you very much for serving. And I'm pleased to say that I get to announce and you get to approve that Kathleen Henry is willing to serve another year as senior warden. So is there a motion to approve that? Karen Valandra and Kate Meadus seconded. Again, all those in favor, hand raised. Put your hands down. Any opposed? Why would you oppose it? Really? Very well. Thank you, Kathleen, for your service. It's been an honor and pleasure working with you. So that moves us right into treasure and budget report. And Libby notified me that her report is as written. So she's going to let it stand as it is written, which you have either in your staple bullet and your reports, or if you didn't pick it up on on the round table out there. But Tom Pitzer will have a few words to say to us about the budget.
So Bill asked me to be very brief, so I will be very brief. You've had a couple chances to see the budget that we're proposing for 2022. We sent it out a week before as an email attachment, and we also sent it out like yesterday, and it's also in your as part of the annual report booklet. So hopefully you had a chance to look at it. I just want to make a couple of comments on it. Number one, on the revenue side, this is the first time that we have had pledge revenue that we anticipate of $300,000 or more. That's a pretty significant number. That came from a pretty successful stewardship campaign where more than 60% of current pledgers increased their pledge and increased it by an average of about 12%. So my thanks to all of you. There was one disappointment. Our second goal of the stewardship team was to increase participation, hopefully from 75% to 80%. We didn't get there. We actually lost in the sense we went from 92 pledges to 87 pledges. There's still one coming. But the generosity is very obvious. The second thing I wanted to make sure is the second item in revenue that's shown on the budget is what's called loose plate. That's really non-pledge income, which is 90% of that. And we feel pretty comfortable increasing it fairly dramatically from last year. And that's because we have about $5,000 in hand right now. So that's the second, probably biggest item of revenue. The rest of it kind of speaks for itself. So the revenue has increased about $18,000 from last year's budget. On expense side, you'll see that was increased about $19,000. There's three fairly big items. Number one, and the biggest, is we felt strongly about giving all the staff, including the lead singer, a 6% raise. In the past, it's been like 2%, and we just felt 6 was very justified. The second item is the increased diocesan asking. which went up about $4,000. But I'll mention that, something about that in a second. The third item is Father Bill is finally going to take his sabbatical, so we have provided funds for There's a few other items that are increased, as I said in our report, increased because enhance our music, enhance our worship, and do a few things to our slightly aging facility. So we've increased things there. So the bottom line is the increase in expenses compared to the increase in revenue says that we have a budget deficit of about $7,500. We can handle it for two reasons. Number one, we have quite a bit of reserves. Number two, we hope to shrink that. The shrinkage is going to come from the revenue side, not from the expense side. The things that we've done on the expense side, I think are appropriate. We've controlled ourselves, but I think if we're going to balance the budget, it's going to come from the revenue side. Unexpected pledge revenue, unexpected something else. But the one thing I do want to share with you is we just heard from the diocese that they are recalculating our assessment, which reduces our assessments about $1,600 for this year. So you can put in your mind, instead of having a deficit of $7,500, we have a deficit of slightly under $6,000, a very manageable number. And with that, there we go. Any questions? If you didn't get a chance to look at it in the annual report or in the emails that Bill sent, yeah.
I'm right here in front of you.
Gotcha, I'm sorry.
Episcopalian in the front row, isn't that crazy?
Yes, ma'am.
But I was gonna ask, I didn't see where you would put, is there gonna be extra monies for when Bill's away? Usually there's work that's done within the congregation when the priest goes on sabbatical. I didn't see if there was any.
There's money in there for clergy, for that. That's the hidden supply. Is there money in there for something else? Not at this point.
Okay.
What'd you have in mind?
I don't know exactly. I just know that usually there's something.
But yes, I think there's like $2,300 in there for extra supply clergy.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Any other questions for Tom? I'm looking at the screen here too. See if any of you folks at home have a question. And unmute yourself and type up if you do.
Okay.
I think we're okay. Thank you, Tom.
So I think that there's a way we did it this year of sending it out early in the way of doing it a couple of different ways. I think we'll continue that. So I'll turn it over to you.
Okay.
Get the vote.
All right. So the budget was, and the budget for 2022 was proposed by the Finance Committee and approved by the Vestry at their January Vestry meeting. Before we heard, by the way, that we had is it $1,600 reduction in our asking from our diocesan pledge. By the way, that was our diocesan staff that looked at our expenses and recalculated our diocesan pledge for us. So we have to thank our bishop and Lori Boss, the diocesan treasurer, for looking out for us and figuring out a way to save us a few bucks. That was very generous of them because, they get our money. But anyway, so I will entertain a motion to approve this budget from this gathering. Kathleen moves. Is there a second? Greg Stevens seconded. Okay, so look for hands again. All those in favor? Hands. I see a bunch of hands, and I'm not going to count them, but to go ahead and put your hands down. We'll just look for any hands, any opposed. And since I don't see any hands there, I will call this unanimous approval. So Thank you very much for all the hard work. Tom and the Finance Committee and Libby working as treasurer, a tremendous effort has been done but really it's all of you who've been so incredibly generous during a time when I would have expected a contraction of during this COVID time. So thank you all for your steadfastness and generosity throughout this whole time. And it's going to set us on a good foundation for the next step ahead. Before we go into some history sharing, I'll offer any reports or questions or comments, and I know Margaret Reberg has something she'd like to ask of us. And yeah, sorry, you have to come all the way down for the owl to hear you.
I would like to suggest that we have a social committee. Now, in my opinion, a social committee does not do all the work. They plan events, and then they get other people to help with the work. And this would include coffee hour. In my opinion, to make sure there's coffee hour, we got to have signups. And I remember 2-3 years ago, Kathy Henneberry went around with the sign up, and that's how she got me. And I said, I need help, and she said, I will work with you. So it's, and social committee, I think it should be men and women, and the number depends upon how many want to sign up. And I think there's events that we can plan, but we need a group to do this. And I know people that suggest things and then they say, no, I don't want to do anything. And this happened to St. James down in Pullman after 84 years of having a rummage sale. We realized there weren't enough people helping, and we put out a survey, and it was disheartening that the number of people that said, yes, we should keep having it. No, I can't work. No, I can't help. So I will be on this committee. But this is what I would like to suggest. So let me know, let Bill know, think about it, and let's come up with a social committee. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have events here throughout the year, and most of them are managed by ad hoc committees, like the Fall Festival or the Christmas Carol Sing-Along Party, which always gets tossed in the lap of the choir. So as I envision what Margaret is suggesting, this would be something to bring all those events into an umbrella, including managing the kitchen and coffee hours. There may be a division between that committee and an outreach committee, which might run a future wine tasting, for example, but still, that's some overlap as well. So yes, that's an excellent idea, and we'll move forward in forming that committee. Yes, Karen?
I have a suggestion. I just came back from a church that had what they call kitchen teams. They had 6 team leaders, and each leader had a number of people on their team. So once every 6 weeks, they were in charge of the kitchen and the activities. If there was a large funeral, they called in another team, 2 teams took over. But there was always a leader in place in the kitchen and the social part of the church. And it wasn't on them all the time to everybody be in charge. So it's just a suggestion.
Yes. We will, yes, Kathleen.
I just had 2 quick things. On that committee note, we definitely are in need of more people to sign up for our committees. I have already covered that, but the Altar Guild and the Funeral Committee are both looking for people who are interested in serving with us. It's a lot of fun, so tempting to come and talk to somebody. Myself or Bill will direct you to the people who need to know where to send you for a big sign up. And And the second thing was, on my annual report, for those involved in the vestry, I accidentally put the wrong dates for our annual retreat, so please do not rely on those dates. It says 6th and 7th, it's actually the 11th and 12th.
Thank you. Yes?
I wonder if people are going to hear these things, and can you repeat what people are talking about?
Can you all hear Karen Valander was talking about her previous congregation with that had kitchen teams. So I'm more fleshing out that notion of having a hospitality or a hospitality committee, a social committee, and Kathleen talked about the need of more people signing up to be part of the Altar Guild. Somebody showed me a picture of the Altar Guild was it just 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when there were 20 people in the picture, and now how many people are?
Well, there's only 2 in the picture.
2 people in that picture are still on the Altar Guild, and right. And the funeral committee is down to 2 people also? Right. So anyway, yes, the Altar Guild needs help with more people sign up. Yes?
I'd just like to say that on both of those committees, it doesn't have to be females only.
Yes.
Men can do these things just as well.
It does not need to be women only on any of those committees. Yes.
Yes, and also, if you are a man considering Altar Guild, we already have one on there, so you won't be the first.
Will Henry is already the male representative on the Altar Guild. There are some Altar Guild associates. Glenn Davis has been an Altar Guild associate for, most of your life, right? Yes.
I don't think people will sign up, I think they need to be called and picture.
Right. Yes, Mel.
Would you repeat that? We couldn't hear it on the...
You can't, that people, we will call you. We will call you. We know that not everybody responds to an all call to sign up for something. So expect a phone call to be on one of those committees. So any other thing?
Did she say the best?
11th and 12th. I hear someone, we're getting some feedback. What's that sound?
11th and 12th of February.
February. It's diminished again. Okay. Is there anyone at home who has announcement? Okay. So I wanted to share with you some history. I've dug the past, all of the annual reports out of our archives to glean through some waypoints along our journey with this congregation, and much of this information is new to me, so I want to share it with you. This congregation is just a little over 60 years old, so the first annual report that was in the files was from the year 1960. January 1960 was the first year there was an annual report for St. Stephen's, when St. Stephen's was a mission, not yet a parish. So the rector, or vicar actually at that time, was Ken Snyder. I don't have the first senior warden, but the congregation was formed in 1958 from individuals from the cathedral, and they began meeting first at Adams Elementary in 1958. It had started before 1958, let me know, but that's what I see. And then in 1959 was a momentous year. While the congregation was meeting at Adams Elementary, this property was secured, then the building, Parish Hall building, first building, was started in April that year, 1959. First spade was turned, and the Parish Hall building, which was the church and everything building, was formally opened by Bishop Hubbard on September 27th, 1959. The Parish Hall building was initially expected to cost $110,000, but it was built because of a lot of sweat equity for only $72,000. So with the brand new congregation, St. Stephen's did not have any extra people on the parish rolls, no fluff. So any names on the parish rolls were actual people. People are actually connected with this brand new congregation. So it's impressive that St. Stephen's was born with 504 communicants and a total of 864 baptized members at its initial year, at first annual meeting. 500 communicants and 864 baptized members. And for my calculations, reading the annual report, I may not be quite reading it correctly, but the Sunday attendance, average Sunday attendance was only 110, which is only about how much we were having here pre-pandemic. So I may be misunderstanding the numbers there. Right, perhaps. But interestingly, well, a couple points. Given our current attempts to broadcast our worship service over Zoom and YouTube, Father Snyder wrote that he served on the Missionary District's Christian Education Committee, and in that capacity he was appointed chair of the Radio TV land, because since the bishop felt that living here in Radio Land would be sensible, and I'm not sure what he meant by that. But Father Snyder wrote with pride about St. Stephen's in his first year, already ranked third in number of members and communicants in the whole diocese. And this is his words, while we know that rankings do not count spiritually and that whether large or small God's work is being done, these figures do illustrate the magnitude of the growth we have sustained and the task necessary to minister to this congregation. He was a hard worker. He hadn't taken any days off during 1958 and 1959. He said he had some vacation days planned for 1960. And just some other numbers for you. The pledge total for that year, 1960, was $32,000. The plate, $2,000, and the total budget was $36,000. And the rector's salary was $4,500. So, just filling in some gaps on leadership. Father Snyder was here for just a couple of years. He was replaced by Father Lonergan, who resigned in 1964. I had a brief story about that was not in the reports. But you remember when I came here, some of you remember when I came here, I asked you to form coffee clatch groups, and so I could meet you individually at various homes. And I was at the home of Spike Lynch, and Spike invited some of the longer members of the congregation to join in that conversation for me to meet. And Jerry White was there telling me about Father Lonergan and how he was very unpopular here at St. Stephen's. And in fact, people stayed away from worship and stopped their pledge payments during his time there in order to force the diocese to get rid of him. And Spike, I'll tell you, was chagrined that Jerry thought that was important to tell your new rector that was
But you got the message.
I did, yes. Yeah, or else you throw me off the cliff, right? So anyway, he was, Father Harold Lawrence was called as rector in 1964, who served until John Hay came in 1969. So, skipping ahead to 1972, Father John Hay was rector. Walter Frank was senior warden, and this building had already been built. I'm looking for a date here. This building was built in 1967, 68, something like that, this building. So then there was the parish hall building and this building and a big open space between the two where you had to walk through the mud or the snow to get from one to the other. And a building project was announced to cover the entrance to this new church building. So what is now the narthex, then at that time initially was an open deck and with no covering over it. And it already was leaking in 1972 and damaging the classrooms down below it. So building campaign was announced to cover that entry area. The congregation voted to allow children not yet confirmed to receive communion in the first grade after having received instruction about the sacrament. Church enrollment in 1972 Church school enrollment, children, youth in 1972 was 125, and the church school staff was 44 teachers, Sunday school teachers, including a few names that we might see now, including Joanne Cenas, for example. Pledge in 1972 was $32,000, same as 1960. And the plate was $750, and the total budget $59,000, and the rector's salary had gone up to $9,000. Okay, 1982, John Hay was still rector. Pat Lund was senior warden. And in the rector's notes for that year at the annual meeting, Gloria Lund, Tom Minnerly, and John Hay were the first team enrolled in the Stevens Ministry Pastoral Care Program, and many more teams were added to that after their first initial exposure. A year-long Kerygna Bible study course began for a year-long study of the Bible using the Kerygna curriculum with 2 weekly classes, one in the morning, one in the evening each week. The steeple on this building had fallen down for the second time under high winds. And the first time the church insurance company paid to have it re-erected. The second time they said it's on you. So it was, at this point, it was laying down on the ground. And so one of the comment at the annual meeting was looking for a new home for that steeple. And I can tell you, it had no home until shortly after I arrived, when it disappeared one night, mysteriously, never to be seen again. The parish hall roof is leaking in various places, and incoming senior warden Jerry White initiated a plan to construct the connector between these two buildings, between the church and the parish hall, so that you wouldn't have to walk outside to get between the two, and so that hallway was built after that time. In the coming year, 1982, the St. Stephen's Lecture Series began with phenomenal nationally and world-renowned speakers coming to St. Stephen's to speak about a whole variety of topics. Note that leading up to this point, St. Stephen's had a curate, an assistant priest, so we had 2 ordained clergy on staff. Gary McKendrick was hired in 1975, but he was let go in the middle of 1979 because of shortage of funds. Oh, and more about the parish hall. Fillers and downspouts in the parish hall caused extensive water damage. Familiar story. The loan is being paid off for repairs of the parish hall roof, more repairs. And the pledge in 1982 was $110,000, plate $7,000, and total budget $146,000. So moving on, 1992, Bob Dunn is now rector. Following up after John Hay, St. Stephen's had an interim period with Ernie Campbell as the rector, but he wound up right at the end of 1991, and Bob Dunn gave his report after having been here for a little over a month in January. Dottie Leland was senior warden. Bob Downing and Ted Tuchek were joining as junior wardens together. During 1991, Bob Dunn noted that a great number of things happened. The Gulf War was fought. And Bob Dunn, when he came, he encouraged formation of small groups, and he wanted people to get to know one another by wearing name tags. Not the first time or last time that was said. Bob Dunn, after he arrived, made some changes in the worship that apparently challenged some people, and he hinted about that. I think there were more challenges than he actually hinted about. And let's see, the hallway between this building and the parish hall was completed in 1990, and a mortgage was paid off in October of 1991. And I'm not sure if that was the original mortgage or maybe the mortgage for this building, but at one point the church was debt-free. Note that Brian Pryor had been working as Christian Living Director since 1987. He was ordained in 1990 and then shortly left St. Stephen's to serve as the diocesan leader for Christian growth and development in 1990. And pledges in 1992 were $151,000, plate $5,700, with a total budget of $166,000. Okay, 2002, after Bob Dunn, we had an interim with Barrett Lindsay, and then, right, am I naming this right? And then John Shepherd was called. And in 2002, he had been here for 4 years. Spike Lynch was senior warden, Dennis Miller was junior warden. Average attendance in 2002 now, was remarkable. Saturday evening average was 26, Sunday 8 a.m. was 35, Sunday 9 a.m. 78, and Sunday 10 a.m. service was 115. So altogether, we were at about 240 average per weekend. So again, this is the 4th year for Father John Shepherd. Reflecting on the year, he spoke about the impact on the whole nation and on St. Stephen's, about the events of September 11th that year and the start of the war in Afghanistan. There were 3 marriages and 13 baptisms in 1991. The youth made a pilgrimage to the Bay Area in February 2001. I think I'm missing up dates, I'm sorry. I'll try to keep on the right date. First basketball camp was initiated by Bernie LaPosser in 2001. And the first wine tasting that fall for the fundraising event. And the first Education for Ministry course series began with it's a 4-year formation series with a year on Old Testament, a year on New Testament, a year of church history, and a year of theology. The challenge for Father Shepherd's challenge the congregation was to look outward and focus on how we impact our neighborhood. There was a beginning of plans for remodeling this worship space that would eventually lead to the sparkly lights and a different sacristy, a new parish office that we have now eventually, and a multi-purpose building. This is Father Shepherd's dream, that there would be yet one more building to provide safe place for the neighborhood to gather in the place, I believe, where the labyrinth is now. And the bridge linking the parking lot to the church building over a chasm was deteriorating and dangerously rotting out. So a lot of projects were ahead. They were looking forward to new and open directions in ministry. The pledges at that time were $195,000, played $8,500, and the total budget, $237,000. Okay, next one, annual meetings. My first annual meeting here, 2012. Steve Bush was senior warden, Bob Redmond was junior warden, Mary Lou was his assistant junior warden. So we conducted a vision forum that first year when I was here. Remember the sticky dots? And the top goals that were identified in that year for the vision forum and the sticky dots was to fully fund a youth program, to hire a youth coordinator, to pay off all of St. Stephen's debt. And in 2012, there was a significant debt left from that project that got rid of the old bridge and put in a new narthex, new office, new entryway, and all of the worship additions and a new boiler. Paul Macias filled in after Mary Ayers as our youth coordinator, working 10 hours per week at $10 per hour. Carol Tevenen led our first theater camp. Roger Lake and Marlis Bush led the senior high Journey to Adulthood group. And lastly, I'll talk about January 5 years ago, so 2017, report, Mary Lou Redmond now is senior warden, Carl Myers junior warden, and the vestry goals of the year leading up to that in 2016 were that each vestry member make calls to every member of the congregation to keep in touch with them, that we would undertake the church assessment tool, a survey of pulse of the congregation, and about congregational health and vitality, that we would develop small groups for ministry and fellowship. So the vestry did, many of them, not all, make phone calls to the congregation. We did, in fact, conduct the church assessment tool, and we did not make much progress in developing small groups for ministry and fellowship. But the church assessment tool gave the pulse of the congregation that we were in kind of a state of malaise, of low energy, low morale. And so at our annual meeting that year, we talked about things that were probably concerning us, our building. At that time, we knew about the deteriorating wall of the south wall of the narthex and the nursery, and the fact that the weight of the windows is kind of slicing through the rotted sills and support of that wall. And the fact that we had leaks all over the building, in the narthex and in the parish hall. So we talked about concern about how do we go about making those repairs to the building. And I think what turned us around at that meeting was Mallory made an impassioned presentation about that someday she might raise a child in this place, and she wanted to have a place to raise that child in the faith of our Christian faith. So that, and then the presiding bishop's visit the following spring turned us around. We started a campaign to do the repairs on the building that raised, what, $270,000. And we made the repairs. As it turned out, I learned about, remember I told you that the narthex used to be a deck and not an open deck? I saw that when the wall was torn down, we realized how rotten that whole structure was. So if we hadn't torn the wall down to see, well, it didn't have to happen. So it's got fixed. So that brings you up to date. So I'd like to divide you up into small groups, and here in the church, we'll need to rearrange ourselves. And I would really like us here in this room to get into groups, not of husband, wife, family members can split up. And also, those of you who've been around for a while, if you could sit with someone who is the newer members. So we'll have a mixture of longer term and more recent members in each group. And so you need to find places around the sanctuary to gather. And Mallory's going to put those of you at home in small groups, and the question I want you to talk about are two. How do you feel listening to stories about St. Stephen's in the past? So how do you feel about when you hear these stories about the past of St. Stephen's? And what was true about St. Stephen's then that is still true today? How do you feel about hearing these stories, and what was true about St. Stephen's in those long ago stories that's true about us today? So take a little bit of time to reorganize yourselves here. Again, divide up longer term, younger, early, more recent members. Oh.